Dear people, the Apostles' thoughts on mercenaries. I wanted to say the Apostles' thoughts mercenaries initially, but it would sound like apostolic thoughts and mercenaries. In short, it's a complex topic about mercenaries in the Russian army. Let's try to simplify the complex and heavy topic, and I'll explain why this is happening. This is my subjective opinion. There will be slides, there will be numbers, it will be interesting, and some people might be shocked by what they hear. Let's go. The topic is actually complex but very interesting and informative. It would be better if it didn't exist, but it does. Here there will be a nanotechnology insert. This is an interview with a Russian army POW from Nigeria. Well, it's originally Russian people, originally Russian fighters, so to speak. So those who haven't watched it, be sure to check it out. He explains the recruitment process there, how he got to the front, how it all happened, the whole mechanics. As you understand, and anyone who follows my work knows that. There are quite a few of these mercenaries, and from almost every country that participated in the war, I've shown them all. They go over well, people are interested, especially when there's a translator. They share their amazing stories about living on $10, which is like 400 hryvnias, about prices in their countries. These are real prices, real accounts, real stories. It's not made up. Therefore, let's figure out what's really happening. I'm from Egypt. It broadens your perspective. An Egyptian citizen will be translating for an Iraqi citizen, the first POW from Nigeria who was captured. Where were you born?
Uzbekistan, the city of Samarkand. Tajikistan, city of Kujant.
You are a citizen of which country?
Uzbekistan.
What is your nationality?
Uzbek.
Uzbek?
Yes, I was born in Uzbekistan.
Born in Uzbekistan.
Uzbekistan?
Uzbekistan. Oh, some data from open sources. The reputable BBC reported that more than 500 citizens of various foreign countries died while being part of the Russian army, and they took direct part in the combat operations. Naturally, this number is much higher. It's dozens of times higher. Even so, they gathered information from open sources like blogs, obituaries, relatives, publications, all open sources. We know a little more because we're here in Ukraine. Moreover, there are various projects of our country, the state, that know more detailed information. It's important to understand that among these 500 killed, there are no North Korean citizens because it's a well-guarded secret, and there are no those who managed to get a Russian passport. So the mechanics are as follows. When a foreigner enters the army, these facts are already known to him, and they can issue him a Russian passport retroactively, so he appears as a regular volunteer. Like some Juanita Bentayagos, but with a Russian passport, so another country can't complain. He had a passport, so 500 people is nothing. This also needs to be understood. Let's try to understand why such a large, multi-million pseudo-country like Russia is engaged in the recruitment of foreigners. It's actually very simple. Firstly, foreigners are cheaper. They don't need to be paid crazy sums. They are simply cheaper like meat. They don't need anything explained to them. They are thrown a small bone and they, so to speak, run after it. The second reason is to reduce Russian casualties, to avoid stirring things up, because there are villages. There have been interviews where prisoners said, in my village there are 300 people, out of which 70 are dead, 200 wounded, plus 30 disabled. So the village is basically buzzing with funeral talk and is hanging on. So, it's clear that escalation among the narrow won't achieve anything. They are disenfranchised serfs, but in fact, to reduce losses. And thirdly, to fill the gap in mobilization, because they need bodies, they have to get them from somewhere. And someone has to be pushed into senseless assaults against our wall of drones. But these three reasons, I think, are natural. But the reason I'm about to mention, no one has considered. This story is called "We'll Implicate These Countries in Supporting Us." Because the rhetoric might be different. Look, 100 countries of volunteers are fighting for us. To implicate them so these countries are forced to follow Russia's lead. In black and white format, I'll explain what I mean at the end. Austria, Albania, Croatia, Slovenia, Estonia. I could keep going for a long time, but if you add 16 more EU countries to these 5, you'll discover something interesting. The total number of troops from these 21 European countries is less than the number of foreigners the Russian army has brought into its army. That means 21 countries of the European Union. Altogether, if you line up all their soldiers, there would be fewer than the number Russia has recruited for the war. You might ask, where did I get such data? I'll easily answer you. There's a state project called I Want to Live. They publish analytics, statistics. They have this data because they work directly with prisoners of war, and they have various sources. Here you'll see the caption "Nanotechnological Max 3D now." Vadim mastered I Want to Live. The link will be in the pinned comment. It's all there. A few detailed specifics, I'll call them. Estonia has an army of 7,700 people, Latvia 17,250, Austria 16,000, Slovenia 7,300. To put it bluntly, just so you understand, the guys from the neighborhood would dismantle Slovenia's army in 15 minutes. They wouldn't even take off their caps. Moldova 850, Croatia 14,325, Bosnia and Herzegovina 12,770, and Albania 6,600. Everything you need to know about. The defense forces of the European Union. I'm not talking about Poland, not about Germany, not about France. We all know this, but we're talking about numbers. If the Apostles' thoughts include slides, that means there was great analysis, so you should subscribe and like right here. Because I'll find everyone by their IP address. My IP cracker hasn't broken yet. A bit of analytics and statistics. 18,000 foreigners are fighting against us. That's a full 4, even 5 complete assault brigades. 3,388 killed, known to the I Want to Live project. 3,080 citizens whose contracts expired but they weren't discharged from service. But that's a standard topic, not even worth mentioning. A total of 128 countries are fighting against us. I can say that, right? Because representatives from 128 countries are fighting against us. Among these 18,000 are citizens of 128 countries and unrecognized territories. A dreary lie. You claim you're fighting the whole world. We can say that too. 37 people from different countries around the world are in captivity. This is stated by the I Want to Live project. Nanotechnology. Caption: I Want to Live. IMAX learned from us. Spielberg. From African countries, 1,436 people. Well, is there anything else to add? I don't think so. Also, I want to point out that this data is current as of September 2025. 128 countries are fighting against Ukraine. Of the world. Starting in 2023, when Russia realized it couldn't handle such losses, they created a whole recruitment network around the world. Why call it an agent network? Because typically, local residents recruit their own locals and send them off. along a planned route to Moscow for the war. At first the count reached 100, then exceeded 1,000. And now this machine is operating at full capacity as it should. Recruitment. The recruitment of cannon fodder often happens for material reasons. That is, they are bluntly told you will earn $2,500. $2,500 for a Nigerian whose salary is $25 to $30 is, as we understand, astronomical. In other words, he paints himself a rosy picture that he'll make $25,000 in a year. Plus, maybe he'll get a signing bonus, so he thinks that after that he'll be set for life and never have to deny himself anything. But very often deceptive schemes are used, bluntly. They're told, you'll be a construction worker, you'll be a cleaner, a loader. But in reality, it all happens differently. Now I'll quickly list for you the options known to me from the interview. In the interview on my channel, I heard the following topics. The first is for money. That's clear. They simply go to war for money. This is immediately declared to them without deception. But mostly, it's like you'll work on construction, pouring concrete, carrying boards. You'll work in Piotr stores. Okay, understood. You'll work at a service station. We'll legalize you and you'll get an education. So you go to study, but in reality you end up at war. The main scheme is deception in principle. There are very few foreigners who came purely for the money. For example, there weren't cases where Kenyans went to war. There were Cubans who went to war. They knew they were going to war and would be fighting. The main story is the deception of Russian citizens, foreign citizens. Undoubtedly, Russia would like to increase the number of recruited foreigners, but due to increasing losses, some countries are starting to close recruitment centers and bring those in charge to criminal responsibility. Some even received life sentences. This, by the way, is the result of our military, including various attaches and the Ukrainian diplomatic corps, who write and organize meetings with prisoners. And when the whole recruitment scheme becomes clear, there is a reaction. We would like a much quicker, sharper, and more effective reaction, but diplomacy is diplomacy, so we'll discuss it for another year, sit for another half year. Let me read you a couple of points. I'm reading out a few notes because these clips are important. They back up what I'm saying. Russia loses 25,000 soldiers killed on the front in Ukraine each month. Well, it's much more already. Such figures were announced by NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. These data confirm the information from the General Staff of Ukraine, according to which the enemy's total combat losses already amount to 24 million. Russia does have reserves, yes, but they'd rather send foreigners to the front as cannon fodder. Understood. By massively recruiting foreign mercenaries, Russia addresses several issues simultaneously. First is replenishing personnel. Second is reducing the regular army's loss levels. And third is purely pragmatic economic issues. Foreign mercenaries can be paid much less than Russian citizens. According to US intelligence, the Cuban government actively supports the war Russia has waged against Ukraine. And up to 5,000 Cubans are fighting on the side of the aggressor country. After North Korea, Cuba is the largest supplier of foreign troops for Russian aggression, and an estimated 1,000 to 5,000 Cubans are fighting, as stated in a telegram message from October 2nd sent to dozens of American missions. That's how it is. Are they running out of their own cannon fodder, or do they just feel sorry for them? We'll fight using foreigners as cannon fodder. Foreigners, I know you're watching me too. You can influence this process. You just need to introduce criminal liability, respond harshly to attempts on the mercenary activities of your citizens, and the topic will be closed. No matter how long the ice takes to melt, it will eventually melt. Quotes from the apostle. Made that up myself, couldn't help but laugh. In the summer of 25, I want to live, and I, among others, showed Kenyan prisoners of war. There were interviews, you can find them on the channel. I'll read the latest news from February 11th, 2026. The Kenyan foreign minister intends to visit Moscow to discuss the ban on recruiting Kenyans into the Russian army, reports Current Time. The foreign minister plans to hold talks with Russian authorities and urge them to stop recruiting Kenyans into the Russian army to participate in the war against Ukraine. He stated this in an interview with the BBC. The number of citizens recruited by Russia is approximately 200 people. So, that's how it is. There's a reaction, but it's slow. Mudavadi called this practice unacceptable. Kenya and Russia have maintained long-standing relations since gaining independence, literally. Well, you know. Well, it will work when authoritative countries state it. To my great regret, I recorded an interview with some European Union citizens, and I think you'll see them very soon. It will be very interesting. Well, nothing, no pity for them. As everyone would say to me now, if you criticize, suggest. But in fact, there's nothing to suggest here. Look, you need a visa for Russia, right? Or almost 90% of the world's countries whose citizens want to visit Russia must obtain a visa. So in the recruitment scheme, it's always present. An ambassador, some consular department is involved, because if a citizen of some African country wants to get to Moscow, they get a visa. That's how it is. It's done very often. And that's why ambassadors help in recruitment. And it's very easy to expel them. You can issue a protest note to them. You can do it, but you need to have the balls to do it. They can be held criminally liable for mercenarism because in almost all countries there's an article in the criminal codes. Mercenarism is directly prohibited. Prohibited. That's how it is. And you can hold everyone involved in the recruitment chain criminally responsible. And then everything will start moving. You can impose restrictions. Well, you can use administrative resources to put pressure on these countries. For example, impose sanctions on a country because their soldiers are fighting. Can you? You can. I know our diplomats are making these attempts, but for now, as we know, diplomacy is a very slow process. We're all watching the shit show. This isn't a swear word. YouTube doesn't ban this word. Let's move on. But maybe someone isn't following my Telegram and will now say, to them, meaning that foreigners in the Russian army are treated as some kind of elite. No, it's not like that at all. Russia, which claims to be fighting pseudo-Nazism here in Ukraine, is actually an ultra-Nazi state itself. Why? Because all the foreigners who are in their army, they will never return home. They're disposable, riffraff, devils. Meat, that's what they call them, coals. Well, we understand, right? By color. You can't say that YouTube will crack down, but that's how it is. I'll make an insertion now. Vadim will, of course, beep out a lot of things there. It's all on my Telegram. Here's the nanotechnological inscription of my Telegram. If you're not subscribed, well, everyone go and subscribe. This is the meat that no one cares for. They are often not equipped. They are used as camels, at best. Camels are those who carry supplies from the rear pancakes to SPs, NPs, observation points, provisions, power banks, and ammunition. That's at best. At worst, it's just meat used for reconnaissance by combat. What reconnaissance by combat is, I think you all guess. It's when, since the Second World War, there's a forest with some positions, but no one knows where. So, a group of people is sent there to see where the fire is coming from. It's simply reconnaissance by combat, sending people as fodder to identify enemy positions. Russia fights with human waves, just like in World War II. That's the truth. Enjoy watching. Please, keep children away from the screen. That's the kind of fellows we've got. There you go.
What is your name?
Francis.
Открывашка ты сегодня. Сейчас побежит, по лесу будет скакать. Вот. Чуточку. Давай, пшел. Шо сказал?
No.
Давай, иди. Иди, сказал. Шо?
No.
О, глянь, сколько одноразочек. Еще и поют. Радостные. Ничего, сейчас на залив пойдут. По-другому запоют.
I honestly thought for a long time about what to say here. In fact, I've listed everything in a colorful format, but I just want to say, Ukraine is now the shield of the European Union. The European Union will never be able to handle Ukraine. And in fact, if I were in Russia's place, I would have attacked Europe first and made sure that they were already occupied and Ukraine would have found itself surrounded, naturally surrounded. So we need to be clear. The Baltic countries will be gone in a couple of days. Given the number of these troops, well, it's clear, right? Small countries will be completely dismantled. NATO's Article 5 is a virtual story that no one knows about, except for September 11, when there were 2 skyscrapers. They'll appear here somewhere now. That's why there was a global miscalculation. They needed to start with Europe. They started with us and broke their teeth. About us. Speaking of mercenaries, 20,000 people is real. That's an insane number. 5 full brigades, 5 brigades. Ooh, that can hold positions. Go, assault, and move. That's a lot. Would it be easier for us if they weren't there? Absolutely. If they all get killed in Russia, no one will even remember them. Not a single prisoner has been exchanged. This indicates that it's also a sort of reflection of Russia's attitude towards mercenaries. What's going to happen to them, the mercenaries? Most likely they'll be imprisoned. I know a couple of stories there. They'll be prosecuted in their home countries when they get there. Mercenaries will persist, their numbers will grow. But the main thought, the black and white thought, is as follows. NATO, Europe have assessed the situation and realized that they need to help and donate because we are the only country in the world that is standing up to the monster, to the Nazis, let's call it that, to the Russian world, which doesn't exist and looks like complete crap. And well, you've all seen those videos. By the way, subscribe to the Apostle Hots channel. There's also a caption here and a link. There, artificial intelligence talks about the Russian world. I urge everyone to look at things with a cold and sober mind. Right now, I urge you to take your phone and donate to the defense forces of Ukraine. Once again, I'm not recommending anyone. Everyone has friends who are currently on the front lines. And remember, we cannot be defeated militarily. We can be split from within. Once again, I urge the SBU to deal with the open traitors who are just spreading panic, fear, and so on and so forth. And soon there will be a cool story. Several are developing in parallel now. There's not enough time for everything, so I've hugged everyone, lifted, flipped, and put them in place. My program works, I pay for information. A link to the Google map with a caption. I don't need "they make airplanes here" information. I need real information that can help our defense forces. We also need information for our special services. If you know that someone is working for Russia, even if they are just an admin of some Telegram channel, but Russian money is involved, and they are a citizen of Ukraine or the European Union, write to me. Oh. The special services will arrest them, there will be one less traitor, and you'll become richer. Lifted, hugged, flipped, put back in place. Allahu Akbar. Hallelujah. The end.